Hello everyone, this is Rachel, one of your Wine Time hosts, and before the episode starts, I just wanted to log on real quick and give a couple shout outs. First and foremost, thank you Heidi for sitting with us and talking with us and helping to tell your mom's story. Not only for helping to tell your mom's story, but also telling us your story and how you played a huge role in this and getting your mom's case solved and getting this monster put behind bars where he belongs. We just truly enjoyed talking with you, and you are a beautiful person inside and out. So thank you so much. Also, a huge shout out to my co-host, Heather. You are an amazing person, and I obviously have never interviewed anyone in my life. So this was something that was just making me very nauseous. No, not nauseous, but I was very nervous. And you just provide the support as a friend and as a person to help me through things. So I love you for that, and thank you. And lastly, a huge shout out to the listeners. Everyone who's tuning in and listening to our episodes, we really appreciate it. We enjoy doing this, but it is very exciting seeing our numbers grow and just see all of you guys logging on and listening each week. So we love you guys, and now for this week's episode, before it starts, I promised Heidi something, and I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for it, but here we go. This is how we're going to kick off this show in 3, 2, 1. Woo, 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 woo! Here we go.
Welcome to Wine Time. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
Where two moms will pour a drink,
Espresso, wine,
cocktail, who knows, and tell you stories
or complain
about moms. You will get the good,
inspirational, uplifting, encouraging,
the badass,
we all know a badass mom,
and the crime.
Moms who have committed them and or survived them.
This is Wine Time.
The good,
The badass,
and the crime.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
We are amazing. How are you doing?
Good. Okay.
This is Heather. We haven't formally met, but I'm Rachel's best friend slash sidekick slash
Sidekick.
co-host.
Okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So excited.
Yeah.
Are
me too.
Are we going to be able to see you at all, or is it
You
just
can't
audio?
see me?
No, not right now.
Let's see. How about
Oh,
now?
I think you're coming.
There you go.
I was like,
Okay, here I am.
were you
It
able to
helps
see
when-
us during that whole time?
Yeah, totally.
Oh,
You guys
okay.
are good.
See our crazy
Awesome.
faces as you logged on. We both like froze instantly. We were like,
I know. I got real quiet. But hello.
hello.
Hello. Thank you
Okay.
so much for joining us.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're really, really excited for you to be here. And it's really nice to, I mean, it's funny because I actually feel we've kind of been chit-chatting and talking back and forth throughout the past like week or so. So I'm like, I feel like I already kind of know her a little bit.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm like, that part is really, really nice. And Heather was like, oh, here she comes. Yay, I get to meet her too.
know,
Because
I
I
know,
just,
I know.
everything I just transfer and tell her. So it's like, she's like, I haven't formally met her. I just talk as if we've known each other forever. So that's just
Yeah.
how I
No,
how
and
I
you
talk.
know, finding you on Facebook and becoming friends that way and Instagram. So yeah, that's good.
I know. I love
I
that.
can stalk it and get to know you a little better.
I was going to say, there's
Yeah.
a lot of stalking to do because I post
Right.
way too much. So I am
I
on
don't
there.
know. Might be a competition there.
You're true. You share a lot of stuff. So I'm like, everything you see, I'm just like, oh, I'm not even out there. I want to go to this International Day stuff. Like, I want to be a part of this. I'm like,
Yeah,
that's fun.
nice.
And Heather
Yeah.
has no idea what we're talking about because she doesn't do Facebook. So she
I don't know.
Oh.
I know.
No.
Everyone
Yeah.
keeps telling me I'm behind. I need to get one. I used to have one, and then I just never kept up with it.
Yeah. So
actually-
you do any social media?
I have an Instagram. I do have an Instagram,
Okay.
but that's like the extent. And then it's so funny because Rachel does TikTok too, and I've been trying to figure that out. And even on Instagram, just since starting this podcast, I've learned so much like how to do so much stuff. Like I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was a possibility on here. So
like I told you, we typically start our episodes by cheersing each other. I don't know if you have something, that you're drinking or you want to cheers with us, but oh yes, that's perfect.
I have my water and my wine today.
You're better than me. I did do a wine. I did a wine today. So I did the 19 Crimes, the Cab Sauv that I gave you Heather that day. It's very good. It's so delicious. But I knew better than to start drinking before because I was like, I don't want a nervous drink. I just want to enjoy it when I get on here. So I was like, I gotta wait. So I just poured it and I have my glass here. And after that, I will have my lemon cucumber water that I go to afterwards. So that is exciting. Heather, what you drinking?
I made myself, I think I'm like now obsessed with like the wine spritzers. I made myself another wine spritzer. So this is some kind of red blend mixed with a berry LaCroix.
I never know how to say that. Is it LaCroix? Lacrosse?
I don't know. However you say it.
Liqueur?
And then I added a lime. Yeah, liqueur. I think that's what it is. Liqueur.
It's fancy.
And I added a lime because I want to be fancy. So
very
cheers.
Nice. Cheers. Yeah. And Heidi, you're over there drinking your water. You can
cheers to Heidi.
Too.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Very cool.
Clink,
okay.
Clink.
Clink, clink. That is the best. I love that. So we cheers and here we go. So in 1970, a beautiful young mother was tragically murdered in her home, where her 4-year-old daughter was in the other room. The tragic day, Loretta Jones' life was taken by a monster who was able to live his life a free man for 46 years. Loretta Jones had been raped, stabbed numerous times, her throat was slit and left to die. 46 years, this garbage human walked the streets knowing what he had done on that day. A certain 4-year-old's life had changed that day as well, and she would never forget. Her name is Heidi Jones-Asay, who over time collected and put together her own case folder with newspaper clippings, articles, emails, and conversations she had over the years, doing her own research, and got her mom's case up and in the spotlight again. Heidi said she was going to solve her mom's murder case, and that's exactly what she did. 2016, Tom Egley was arrested and convicted of murdering Loretta Jones back in 1970, and now he is locked up exactly where he should have been this entire time and where he should remain until the day he dies. Okay. I'm like, I got to get the nervous jitters out. Okay, Heidi, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and today we are going to get right in. So I want to start off with you telling us about your mom. She was taken away way too soon, but what are some of the memories that you have with her and who she was as a person?
So my mom, Loretta Jones, she was 23 years old and I was 4. She was a single mother, and we lived in a house in Price, Utah that my grandfather had bought. And I was her world. We would, go get ice cream together. We would sit on the front porch and watch the neighbors go by. We'd wave at the neighbors. Yeah. She was studying to become an accountant. So she was taking correspondence courses at home.
Right.
So she could spend more time with me. And, we would do everything together. I know she loved me more than anything in the world. One of my memories of her is she was ironing her clothes. Mm-hmm. And I had my little ironing board and my little pretend iron, and I'd stand alongside her and iron my clothes.
Right.
And she made me a doll. One of the few items that I still have to this day that, but she made me this cute little doll. I named the doll Dea because she made it in the day.
Yeah. No, that's so cute.
She loved to sew, and she was very good at it. She made a lot of her own clothes. She made my clothes, and of course, doll, the doll that I have, stuffed animals she made. She was just the absolute best mom for me.
Right. Yeah, no, from you saying that, she seems very present, she just wanted to be around you. You were her world, like you said.
Right.
That is so amazing.
Both Rachel and I are girl moms, and I think there's definitely something special about, the relationship you have with a daughter. So that's
Right.
that's awesome.
Absolutely, for sure. Okay, so we're getting right into it. Can you tell us about your last night home with your mom and what you remember from that night?
Well, unfortunately, because I was 4,
Right.
I don't really remember a whole lot, if anything, of that particular night. I don't remember being sent to bed. I don't remember, did I take a bath? I don't remember any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember anything until the next morning.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
things that happened during that night, I believe that, like my mom came to the one door and told me, don't come out no matter what, or don't come out of your room. And
Right.
I know that I heard noises.
Right.
And the way that I know that I heard
Right.
noises was because of, in the morning when I went to leave my room, and I can't say it was when I woke up. I'm not sure about that. I have blocked it out so
Of course.
Of
well.
course. Yeah, definitely.
So, the next morning, my first memory is that morning, walking over to my door and looking through the keyhole. And, back in 1970, we had one of the skeleton keyholes. So you'd look through the keyhole and be able to see what was going on in the next room. So, I looked out the keyhole that morning, and
Right.
that's when I saw,
When you saw
yeah.
July 30th, 1970, you woke up to a tragic event no one should ever have to wake up to. Could you tell us what you remember from your point of view as a young child that day?
So on the morning of July 30th, 1970, or July 31st, actually, when I found her.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
So from the police reports and everything, I never left my room until about 11 o'clock in the morning. So between 10:30 and 11 in the morning. My first memory is going to the door and looking through the keyhole, and I see something laying on the front room floor.
Right.
And at first I thought it was just like maybe some laundry or some clothes laying on the floor. And then I opened my door, and it was my mom, and there was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was blood on the floor, blood on the couch. And then I don't remember if I went over and I touched her body or any of that. My next memory is I go out the front door, and I see my neighbor Lance, and he was outside digging for worms to go fishing. And he says, Heidi, come here, I got to show you something.
Right.
And I says, I can't. I think my mommy's dead.
Mhm.
And then Lance came running over, looked through the window, grabbed me. We went to his house next door. Then his mom, from what I understand, his mom went over and saw my mom laying there on the floor.
Yeah.
And then she's the one that called the police. And I remember sitting in their house, sitting around the kitchen table, waiting for my grandparents and the police to come.
Right.
Right.
So yeah, he went over, he looked. The mom went over, she looked, and then they called. How close were your grandparents because she called your grandparents as well, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
were they near you?
they lived across town. So
Okay.
Price wasn't very big. So it would take maybe 7 minutes to get there.
Okay. All right. So hopefully they got there soon. I feel like I couldn't imagine what you were going through. Obviously, no one should or can, but to be sitting there in that moment, just, oh. Okay. So after the cops were called and the investigation began, word came out that another crime was committed in your neighborhood that night. Egley had tried to kidnap a little girl from her yard. He did end up getting arrested for that attempted kidnapping. And during this time, they also tried to make a case against him when it came to your mom, which obviously ridiculously failed since 46 years later. You were so young during this time, but looking back on it now, like, how does that make you feel? Like, when you look back, they did a little bit of an investigation. You talked to your grandma. You told them who it was. So how, looking back on it, do you feel?
So looking back on it, it's very frustrating that, I was there. I knew who did it. I told him it was Tom. I repeatedly told the police it was Tom. Right. He was arrested for the kidnapping of Lori. Yes. And then he was sitting in jail waiting for the charges to be filed against my mom. And they took too long. And so the judge was able to, release him. His attorney was able to make a case that he was being held for something that they didn't have all the evidence that they needed to have. So at the time, of course, I don't remember all of this, but later in life, it's just mind blowing,
Yeah, absolutely.
I know growing up, the police would come over and ask me quite frequently about that night. And I tell them, Tom did it. Tom did it. Tom's the one that killed my mom. And then her case went cold. And then later, I think it was in the mid to late 70s, probably late 70s. My grandmother had wrote notes, had made little notes of things that happened in life. And I found, after she passed away, I found a notebook where she said that, the police had came and talked to it. So it was actually 10 years later. I remember that. And she said the police had come to talk to her about Loretta's case again. And, but nothing was done. So, but, at that time, there was no DNA. We didn't do DNA back in the 70s. So it's basically a 4-year-old girl telling you that Tom did it. And from what I understand, there was another Tom that my mom had knew. So they weren't quite sure on which Tom. But,
Well, how about the Tom that was arrested for being in the same freaking neighborhood that night and committing another crime? I mean, come on. That seems to be obvious.
Hard. It's not hard.
Right.
It's
then go ahead. Sorry.
Nope, it's all you.
And then also that night, his girlfriend his pregnant girlfriend that he had, she remembers him coming back and bathing in his clothes. And then the next morning he burned his clothes. And so
yeah, that part, just I have that a little bit later, where it's like who Brewer talks to, and she's one of them. And just that, how do you stay quiet? You just posted on your Facebook post. You have to say the things that you hear or Sometimes you're afraid, sometimes you're scared. The thing is you have to. That's the only way to get those people who should not be out around other people locked up and where they belong. It's not okay. And we also have to be able to provide a safe way for people to feel comfortable to speak up and to say these things. Because I mean, I don't know in her case, I don't know her, but from what I read, and obviously he's an awful, terrible, ridiculously fucked up person. Maybe she was afraid. But the thing is you have to just say something. You have to say something. Before you had brought that up, I was going to say, when you were talking about the DNA, I remember you saying in one of the cases too, you didn't even have 911. So when you were a child too, that's like another thing that you didn't have that came later. Gosh. That, that's just that time. The times are so different. And
because right outside my bedroom was where the telephone was. If I would have been able to, if we had 911, but I would have to have found a phone book to figure out, Carbon County Sheriff's number, or I'd have to, hopefully I remembered my grandparents' phone number, but,
I mean, you're 4. Like, that's hard.
You did everything.
Oh my gosh.
You did everything right in that moment. It's just like a testament of like how you were raised and what you knew to do, and you went out. Like, I mean, you don't remember everything that happened that morning, that night, but from what you've said, you went and you got help, and that's all you could do.
Right.
Man, okay. So you were really young when all of this happened, and you ended up moving in with your grandparents, right? So could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing after all of this?
So my grandparents, they were my mom's parents, of course, and I moved in with them, and they had, let's see, five. So there's a total of 5 sisters and 3 brothers that I currently have. But when I moved in with them, there were so my Aunt Carolyn, my Aunt Lila, and my Uncle Brian that lived in the house. And then Carolyn ended up moving out. She was, at 18, get ready to move out.
Age to be
right. And so then it was me and Brian and Lila, and then Lila moved out shortly after that. And so, my grandparents, they were crushed. They had lost a daughter, not just, but in a horrific way. Right. My grandfather was a contractor in town. He built a lot of the well-known buildings around town. He built a lot of the houses. In 1973, they adopted me. So, so all my aunts and uncles became my brothers and sisters. So, my sister aunts, my, uncle brother.
Yeah, I was going to say brunkles. Right. Or how would you say?
Brunkle, right? Yeah. Yep. So, they became all my, my personal siblings. And then my grandfather in 1974, he was building, it was, the front of a hotel, and he actually suffered a heart attack and he passed away. So, so then so my grandma mom, my grandma, she became a single mom, and, she pretty much had me and Brian at home at that time. And, she did the best for us that she could. And I feel like everything that I went through, I had a pretty decent childhood, if you will.
Yeah.
Everyone's
just trying to do their best. She's trying, but at the same time, you're grieving. You're trying to cope and grow, but so is she. So it's like, and so is everyone that knew your mom. So at that same time, and then losing your grandfather and then her husband. So it's just all of that all at once, where it's like everyone is trying to just do their best to move forward.
Right.
So
and it was hard to talk about my mom. It would just make my grandma cry. It would make my grandpa upset. Yeah. And once my grandpa passed away, we pretty much just stopped talking about it. It was just something that we didn't talk about. In later in life, I'd bring it up, and it would just make my grandma cry, and I hated it. I hated being the one to make her cry all the time. Yeah. So we stopped talking about it. I stopped asking questions, and this was the way it was going to be, and go on with life.
But that's got to be hard for you as a child. You're trying to process it, and so it's you kind of in a tough situation. And I'm sure your grandma in a tough situation where she's, she wants to be there for you and wants to help you process that. But at the same time, it's got to be incredibly hard for her as well. But it's so hard. You're a kid. You're trying to cope, and then you're trying to cope in the way that you know how to talking to someone who your grandma, but then you also don't want to make your grandma upset. So you're even as a child, as an adult, that puts you in a really difficult situation. Even as a child, even more so. It's got to be so hard to learn how to come back from that.
Right. Well, and growing up, I was always the outspoken one. I was always the one that stated my opinion. I talked a little too much at times. And
I got you a long way in the end.
and
I would say that is a strength. I would say both Rachel and I have that same quality.
yeah.
I
So,
talk too much. I don't know if it's wanted.
well, in elementary school, I was pretty shy. I was pretty shy and quiet. And then in junior high, I came out of my shell. In high school, definitely. So, and then, later in life, I moved to California and came back, and I'll tell you this, there was this time that I was asking my grandma mom about my mom, and it was just making her upset. And I just told her, look, I'm sick of competing with you. I'm sick of trying to figure out who hurts worse. I understand it was your daughter. I know that you hurt, but it was my mom. I hurt too. So, I mean, that was kind of a breaking point in our relationship, because we're both still grieving after all these years. So,
I don't like to hear the breaking point, but I got goosebumps. That part is really hard, but you have to speak up for yourself. Like you said,
right.
It came to a point where you have to. I don't have this in the notes. I'm wondering, I don't know if you don't want to talk about this. Did you go to any kind of therapy, or what was your kind of thing to kind of help you in those times to, kind of get through any kind of mental moment that you were having, or emotional struggle, or anything?
Well, there wasn't really counselors to go talk to back then.
Oh, this time difference.
Yeah, there.
Time. Oh, gosh.
I want to transport back to time and just hold you. Man.
Well,
seriously.
I couldn't just, call somebody and say, hey, I need some therapy. I didn't even know what therapy was.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, that's put me in my place. My little 1990 born place.
I'm sure there was some place that we could go and talk to somebody at that point, but I didn't know about therapy.
Right.
I kind of, I just didn't talk about it. And then I was in, I believe it was high school, in my creative writing class. I wrote this poem about my mom, and I stood up and read it. And I'm sophomore, junior in high school, and I'm reading this horrific poem about my mom's murder and how much I missed her,
Yeah.
And people are just like, what? So, I mean, I have friends that say they had no idea until I did that. But it was a way for me to start to try and talk about it to somebody,
Yeah,
So,
since you felt like you had been you didn't say this, but I feel like you had felt shut down, or as if you weren't really able to have that outlet that you very much needed growing up. So that's that part is hard. Oh man. So you had just mentioned how you had went from Utah to California and then back. So you went to California. Why'd you go there? What'd you do there? And then when did you come back?
Okay. So I let's see, in 1986, I packed my bags, packed a little U-Haul behind my Camaro, and moved to San Jose, California with my boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
He had moved out there and he was working and everything. And I just figured, hey, why not? Let's, so I told my grandma that I was moving and she wasn't happy, but I just, I just didn't know what I wanted to do in Price, Utah. And so I moved to California. And so I was in the real estate industry for 20 years. I did everything but sell real estate. I worked at the San Jose Real Estate Board for years. I was a title rep. I was tech support. I was computer support for a ton of realtors, and taught classes on how to use a computer, how to search for a listing, how to make a flyer on how to sell a house.
No, that's awesome.
Wow.
I have family in real estate. I wonder if they took any of your classes. They're in California.
Well,
I don't think
San
the same
Jose,
area, though.
But yeah, so then I was there for 20 years, and I just got to the point where I wasn't making good choices any longer, and I thought, you know what, I need to go back home. I need to make a change. And one of my best friends, Lulu, bless her heart, we would she always encouraged me to talk about my mom and everything, and so
You need that friend. That, oh, my heart.
Yes.
That makes me so
Yeah.
Bless you, Lulu.
Lulu,
that
I
is
wanna talk to
exactly
Lulu
who you need
too.
in your life.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
So,
Keep going. I love her.
when I was getting ready to say my goodbyes to Lulu, I said, well, if I'm going to go back to Utah, I might as well, try and get my mom's murder case solved.
Yes.
Said, you go, girl,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Heck yeah. Of
But,
course.
during that time of living in San Jose, so it was, 1989. So 1989, there was a show that came out on television called Unsolved Mysteries.
Right.
And I thought, So I wrote the TV show
Yeah.
to see if they would maybe help me solve my mom's murder case.
Yeah.
And while living in California, I was able to pick and choose who I told my story to.
Right.
Nobody knew,
Right.
they
That must have
didn't
been a
know,
big difference for you.
right.
from
You're the
being
little girl
home.
who, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
So then, in 1989, I wrote Cold Case File, or Unsolved Mystery, sorry. And I never heard back from them. But while I was in the letter writing mode, I thought, well, shoot. So I wrote to the Carbon County Sheriff. I wrote to Price City Police. I wrote to the judge. I wrote to absolutely everybody that I could think of that
Yeah. Good for
worked
you.
on my mom's case.
Right.
And I got, I got a letter back from Albert Pasek, who was the Carbon County Sheriff at the time. And he was a nice guy. I remember him coming and interviewing me as a child. And he believed they had the right guy, but there just wasn't enough evidence to do anything. And so, I wrote to the FBI. The FBI wrote me back. So I gathered this little, all these letters and all this, and I put them in a folder, and I just saved them.
Right.
But, after a little while, I was hitting another brick wall. It was another brick wall. Nobody knew anything. Nobody could tell me anything. Where are the records? Where are the files? There aren't any records. There aren't any files. I can't send you anything on it because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So it was just like, okay. So then I just kind of left it alone for a while. And
you feel defeated at a point where
Right.
you feel like you've just continued and tried and kept going and been kind of turned away, or
right.
like you said, they just didn't respond, or they didn't contact you whatsoever. So you get to a point where you just feel like you hit a wall, and no one likes those walls. We need to tear down all of those walls. I'm going to blow up these walls. Oh,
Right.
I hate that. I hate that for you. Okay. So you left California, and you went back to Utah.
Right. So in 2006, my two sister aunts, Carol and Lila and their husbands came out, and we packed everything up and moved me back to Utah.
Yes.
And I lived with Lila for a while up in northern Utah and everything, and then I was working and not in real estate, not in computers, and then I had moved into a roommate situation. I was renting a room out of a basement, and it was the 4th of July weekend in, let's see, 19.
I was going to say 2009, right? Because that was
right.
the next.
Thank
that's
you.
where I was going. Yep, that was the next one. You keep going.
I get mushy brain, I have to say, okay, where was I?
Got you.
So then in 2009, I moved in, and it was the 4th of July, and went to bed that night for 4th of July, and went out the next morning, and my car was stolen. and my little Honda Civic.
No.
And so I posted it on Facebook that my car had been stolen. And, prior to that, I, had my Facebook account and I was going through, adding friends and,
Right.
oh yeah, I remember this guy from high school. Oh, I remember her,
I know him.
all
I know
that
her.
stuff. Yeah. And, oh, look, David Brewer. Oh yeah, I remember him when he worked at McDonald's, and added him. And then, so I end up, posting that my car was stolen. And David had responded and he says, well, too bad you're not closer. And I said, what? What do you mean? Aren't you in California? And he says, no, I work at the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. And I was like, what?
Yeah. You're like, the alarms went off. Ding, 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 ding,
exactly.
ding.
So that was in July. So then in August, there's a big arts festival they have here in Helper, and it's called the Helper Arts Festival. So I made plans to come down for the Helper Arts Festival. And, so eventually my car was returned 3 weeks later.
Returned?
They found
What
it.
did they do? Just put it back at your driveway then one of the nights and you woke up to it again?
No,
What do you mean?
It was found like 3 blocks away, believe it or not. And they had taken the subwoofer and the amp.
Oh, you were
Oh my gosh.
raging. What was in your stereo at that time? What were you listening to?
I know.
In a Honda Civic, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, what were you blasting in that Honda?
Right? Oh, 80s rock. Is there anything else to listen to?
Yeah.
I love it. Yes, good.
A little Y&T and some Autograph is the best.
Yes, go.
I know.
love that.
You have no clue, and that's okay.
I have not heard of Autograph. But now I'm gonna go look it up. I always do research. So
Autograph
go and listen.
Turn Up the Radio is the name of their biggest hit.
Nice.
Actually, I think we're allowed to play a 10-second clip of whatever we want.
Play
We
10
should
seconds
open
of it.
with
Oh, nice.
Well, you should have been. Last night we were testing our audio, and to make sure that the sound was on point, we all just started singing Bohemian Rhapsody. So there was that to make sure that we.
That's good.
Oh no, we were not good.
No, it was bad. I mean, we tried, but it was actually very bad.
Yeah, I should not sing, but we do a lot of singing, unnecessary singing, unwanted singing.
I think anyone who knows us thinks like they sing way too much.
Yeah, I get that. I sing off key, so it's all good.
That's all besides the point. Well, with all of that, like I personally, so that is actually one of the things when I first started like researching your mom's story and then like learning about you and your part in this case, like I loved this part of the story because it showed like how assertive and how much of like a badass you were and that you were not going to let any stone go unturned. At that point it's go time. Like Lulu said, like you told her, I'm going to go do this, and you meant it, right? So from there, can you tell us about like you got a hold of Detective Brewer and then what was the process after that?
So once I posted on Facebook about my car, and David, I figured out was working he told me that he was working for the sheriff's office. I had this ding, ding, ding moment, hey, I need to go talk to him. And so the arts festival was in August, and I found out that he was going with his wife and kids. And so I made a point to make sure I knew what he looked like, because after all that time, he had changed. He didn't look like he did in high school. So I made sure to look at his profile picture. I made sure to study what kind of sunglasses. And this totally sounds like a stalking case. It's not.
You do what you have to do.
You know what? You do what you need to do.
Yes.
You're doing what you needed to do.
Right. So I just made sure I knew what he looked like. And then I came down for the arts festival and just walked around, and lo and behold, there he was. And I I walked up to him. I kind of hit him on the shoulder and I said, David freaking Brewer.
Oh,
And he
man.
just, and he just kind of looked at me like, what the hell? And I says, hey, I'm Heidi Jones. And he's like, oh, hey, Heidi.
Oh,
And
my gosh. Oh, his
So-
voice. The voice that you have for him is the best.
Oh, you like that?
It's the best.
So, small talk for a minute. And I says, hey, since you're working at the sheriff's office now, my mom was murdered in 1970 in Price,
Right.
and the case was never solved. And I find out that he was rolling his eyes behind his sunglasses going, oh, yeah, here we go,
Oh,
But
no.
he's like, oh, okay, why don't you just give me a call on Monday? And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, great. I'm all excited about it. And secretly he's going, oh, man,
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so on Monday, I called him up and I told him everything about my mom's case. And I started sending him copies of all the letters I had written. I sent him copies of all the newspaper clippings I had gathered. And he had never heard of this case before.
Right.
And so then he started looking into it and doing some research and, found out that case files were taken home and basements flooded and just
Things are gone.
there
Things are
was
missing.
nothing.
Mm.
Right.
Gosh.
That is just unacceptable. Like,
Right.
where is the vault that doesn't get ruined? Ugh,
Right?
gosh.
Well, see, and plus they had a new building for the sheriff's office, so files got moved, and maybe something got shoved aside, and this
So
was
how do we do better moving forward? Because that's
I know,
unacceptable. That is
right?
completely unacceptable.
It can't
Right.
be the first time that a sheriff's office has moved. Like, I mean, figure it out, guys.
but see, now we have all this great technology. Back then, it was
Right.
pieces of paper photocopied and in a white box with a lid, and a
Yeah.
flood happens, it gets destroyed, and so
Oh my
thank God for technology.
Right.
Mhm.
Not everything back then was saved to the cloud, Heather. Just there was no 911 and no cloud.
Right.
Gosh, come on. We're learning. So I have on here, 2009, you got into contact with Detective Brewer. Then in
Mhm.
2016, so, I mean, throughout that process, you were telling him things. You were
Right.
giving him the information.
Right. So
And then
go ahead.
I was going to say, and then the next thing that I have is how in 2016 your mom's body was exhumed. And that must have just been an emotional roller coaster for you. But your goal was to get answers and get who you knew was the murderer behind bars. So it's like, I mean, if you have more between that time period, please
Oh, yeah.
let us know. Of course, I know you were
Yeah.
making moves.
Yeah. So in 2009, I started working on it again. 2010, 2011, it was, nothing was really going on. 2012, I moved back to Carbon County. And I had met my future husband at that time in 2012. And then
Woohoo!
I ended up moving down here.
Mhm.
And so in 2012, so there was right away from 2009, 10, 11, there was, time to do some research, but not really anything was being done.
Mhm.
Then let's see, 2013, not much was being done. 2013, I believe it was. He said something to me about, well, maybe we should try exhuming your mom's body. And I says, well, that we'd have to do it at night in the dark and nobody could know, because there's no way my grandmother would have allowed that. No way.
shoot.
Wow.
And so then let's see, 2014, 2015, my grandmother passed away.
Okay.
And then David was like going to some cold case conferences, and there were some new possibilities that we could try and do. And so then in 2016 is when it really started to take off. So let's see, to back up, in 2014, I went and met with the Carbon County District Attorney, and he told me without any physical evidence, there was nothing they could do. Without physical evidence or without a confession, there was nothing they could do. And so, just kind of, then my grandmother passed away. And then in 2016, it was on fire what we did in 2016. So
yeah, you were like, no, we are going today.
Right.
It's go time right now. Yeah.
So I know that David had went and interviewed Egley, and had went and seen him, and he remembered my mom. He remembered me, which is creepy, but
That is
So creepy.
No.
and he was living in Rocky Ford, Colorado, and so David had asked him some questions about my mom and about the K, about what should happen to somebody that did this, and
Yeah.
he said at one point, well, it depends on if they've done it again or not.
No, it doesn't.
No,
It does not.
No, it doesn't.
Right.
Are you
No, it
freaking
doesn't.
kidding me?
Yeah, that's not the
So-
correct answer whatsoever, sir. Actually,
Right.
goodness gracious, like.
So then we were working on the case. We played with the idea of exhuming my mom's body, and then David asked me one day, he says, well, what do you think if we exhume your mom's body? And I said, give me a shovel, I'll help dig.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Get it.
And because at that point, there was, my grandmother wasn't there, I didn't have to worry about
Right.
any of that. And he said, okay, we're going to do this. And we came up with a plan. We invited every single news person that we could think of, and so the day of the actual exhumation, it was just the police officials, the coroner, the medical examiner's office.
Mhm.
And there was a wonderful professor here at the college who teaches homicide classes, Rachel Walton. She was there. So David says, oh, you don't need to go. And so I went. And so me and my husband go, and we pull into the cemetery. And it's a really small cemetery. And we pull in, and I says, holy crap, who are all these people?
You're like, what
who are all
is
these
this?
people? Why are they here?
Yeah.
And so I had to make sure I figured out who everybody was.
Right.
And so then Kevin and I were there, and when they started to, when the backhoe got to the point where it was getting ready to bring the vault out,
Right.
there was not a cloud in the sky that day. And then all of a sudden, this whirlwind came through the cemetery, and David said, oh, there's Ludine. And that's my grandma, because she was so dead.
Oh my
No, you
gosh,
can't do this.
no.
Oh,
Yeah,
No.
it was, I mean, the trees, the wind, I mean, it was crazy. And it was her way of letting us know that she was there. She wasn't happy about what we were doing, but she was there.
I was gonna
And,
say maybe it was
Oh my
it was her
gosh. I
in
have
her way
chills. That's
granting
crazy.
permission. Rather, I mean, it's all about perspective. It's all about
Right,
how you want to
okay.
look at things. So you can think of it as she was like, no, I said no, but you can also think
Right.
of it as I'm not here, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
Right.
I'm giving you my shovel. I am giving you my So
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. So David said, there's Ludine. came through, and then they get the vault. They're pulling the vault out of the ground, and lo and behold, the vault slants to one side, and it's full of water.
Yeah.
And so water just
Ugh.
starts draining out.
Yeah.
But we have to go
How
on
did
with
you
it.
feel in
Right.
that moment when you saw that? What was your
Well,
feeling?
You know, the crazy thing is everybody's like, oh no, it's over. Oh, just forget it, you know. But I was like, no, you know, there's
Yeah.
probably
Mhm.
something in there. There's something in there, you know.
Mhm.
So I didn't realize how bad it was until I, you know, heard the next day. But we had a plan. We were doing
Right.
this, and we weren't stopping. So they put the vault on the back of the truck, and you know, Kevin and I followed the vault out, and then the rest of the police officers and, you know, everybody, we had this little parade of cars. We're driving out, and pretty soon they turned left, and we had to keep going straight, and I lost it. It was like, mommy, mommy, mommy. She was gone all over again. She was always in the ground. She was always in that place. And for the first time in all those years, she wasn't going to be where she's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh.
I mean, it was such a crazy feeling. I don't even know how to describe it. But
I mean, I feel like you just did. I feel it all over my body, but just
know.
your feeling of like, I don't feel like that ever goes away. Like, yeah, that was different.
Right.
She was around, and you felt her presence, her being
right.
there. So
Yeah.
Oh,
So then they turn left, we go straight, and then, you know, the next day, we have to have another funeral as quick as possible.
no.
You know, we just kind of threw it all together, and you know, we found out that so I knew that my mom had been buried in a wooden casket. So her casket was wooden. She was buried under a sprinkler, and there was nothing left.
Gotcha.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
You know, there
it was
was
just like deteriorated. It was gone.
right. So there was some remnants of her clothing, and
I
her
just looked to the
dentures.
side. Did you see? Do you have it?
What?
Her clothing?
No. So there were just like
Oh.
remnants. No.
Okay.
So like, you know, you could tell like that was probably the lace of the dress, and there was like
Okay.
a femur bone. Her dentures were still intact, and then I knew she was buried with her class ring. So I
Right.
asked David if he could get her class ring for me, and he actually found 2 rings. So he found a little black ring that I later, well, it was onyx.
Mhm.
I later found out it was what single women wore back in the 70s to stop the questions. So not single women, single mothers.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Mhm.
They wore on their wedding finger to stop people, you know, asking questions. And then he also found her class ring. So
I got one of those.
there's her class ring.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I just got
Yeah.
chills. That's
So
amazing.
and the other ring unfortunately broke. So but so the next day we you know, had this whole plan. We invited every news station, everybody we possibly could. And we just told them that we were going to be waiting for DNA. It was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. We had a story. We were sticking to it. Nobody knew exactly the extent of what was actually left.
Right.
So, so then so that night, David said, I need this news to get to Rocky Ford. And I was on it. My old next door neighbor's best friend lived in Rocky Ford, Colorado.
Okay.
So as soon as I posted it on Facebook, it was in Rocky Ford within minutes.
Right.
And Egley asked his neighbor,
Yeah.
hey, how long does DNA last on a body?
Yeah.
And so he knew about it, and he was squirming.
He was
And so I
nervous.
called, I called David and I told him, well, he knows. And he says, what do you mean he knows? And I said, well, he knows. How does he know?
So you
How does he know
you knew her?
So I knew my old next door neighbor, her best friend lives in Rocky Ford.
Okay.
So she called
connections.
someone.
Right.
Yeah. And pretty soon Tom was talking to his next door neighbor, Lisa.
Yeah, so I said, like, you know, the exhumation, obviously it didn't bring any answers that you guys were hoping for or that you guys were wanting. But
Right.
it did bring conversation because it was widely publicized. And that's
Right.
something that needed to happen. So some
Right.
people started talking, and this is also what Detective Brewer, he got into contact with. I had said Tom's ex, which you had mentioned a little bit earlier about her and her story. And then, you know, obviously Lisa, is it Lisa Carter? Was that the neighbor
Right.
of his?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then also I mentioned Linda. So yeah, keep telling us about Lisa and how she said all of that stuff, because that is insane.
Yeah, so Tom started talking to Lisa and just telling him, you know, there was this woman back in Price, and you know, Lisa said, well, they exhumed her body, you know, they found DNA, and he just started talking, and so David said, Heidi, how would you feel about signing a letter that you won't sue Tom in court for his personal belongings? And I'm like, okay, I'll sign it, whatever I have to do. And then, you know, pretty soon, you know, the Attorney General's office is involved, and you know, we were making a case,
Right.
because he started talking to Lisa and he didn't stop talking.
Yeah.
She wore a wire.
Yes.
And he confessed every detail of that night to Lisa.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So,
Oh my
and
gosh.
he claims that he didn't know that I was in the next room. That's what his claim was. But where else would I be?
Yeah,
So.
Right. Seriously, where would you be?
He says he remembered you. He had to have known.
He knows,
Right.
He knew where you were. And obviously your mom also, because I will believe forever that she stayed quiet to keep you safe and did everything that she could to protect you and, you know, keep you safe in that moment. So he can go fuck himself. Sorry.
Right.
Excuse my language. But yeah, so she wore that wire. He admitted, he confessed everything to her, and she brought that information to Detective Brewer, right? So then after that, he called you and said that he needed to talk to you. And how did that conversation go?
Well, so back in, I don't know, 2009, I made this bet with Brewer. I told him, hey, if you I found out he was a huge Oakland Raiders fan.
Boo.
Don't
tell him I said that.
I said, hey, if you saw my mom's murder case, I'll get a Raiders tattoo.
Yeah.
And he said, okay.
I got to see this.
No.
I got to see it.
Oh, let's see.
Show me.
No way.
Yes.
Gosh. That's so great.
It's amazing.
It's not little.
No. But hey, he deserves that big tattoo on your leg. And you do too. Okay, keep going. So you told him you were going to get it. If he
so then he tells me, Heidi, I remember the phone call. I remember it was late at night, and he's like, you know, Egley confessed. And I'm like, what? He confessed? And he says, yeah, he confessed. And I'm sorry. The phone call when he told me that he confessed was during the day. You know, he called and he says, Heidi, where are you at? And I said, well, I'm in the parking lot. And he says, okay, can you talk for a minute? And I'm like, yeah. And him and Wally Hendricks were on the phone, and they're like, Egley confessed. I'm like, what? Egley confessed. What do you mean he confessed? He confessed. And I mean, it was mind blowing. And it was happy tears and just mind blowing.
Right.
And then later that night, he called back and, you know, telling me some other details. And I says, oh crap, I got to get that Raiders tattoo. Yeah. And he says,
held up your
I've
end of the
forgotten
deal.
all about that. But
No,
So-
that's amazing that you got that.
right. So
I
then
love
we,
that.
the attorney general's comes down and we, take him to court and everything. I made the decision to drop the rape charge because Egley would admit guilt to the murder if I dropped the rape charge.
Okay.
So I dropped the rape charge, and it didn't matter because he confessed to it all in court anyway. But yeah,
You know what you know. Everyone
Right.
knows. Everybody knows.
Right.
Whether you
Right.
want to say, yes or no, or drop this or drop that. Everyone knows what you did,
Everyone
what
knows the truth.
happened, and,
Right.
Okay. But
Right.
at that same point, you did what you had to do to still follow out and execute the exact same thing that you said you were going to do. And you
right,
did it. You did it.
right.
So, oh my gosh. So, he was arrested in, it was August of 2016, right? And then
Right.
convicted in October of 2016, and you were there. So,
Right.
how was that with you being there during that day?
I went to every court appearance of his. I made sure I was there. Made sure he seen me. The first time I was expecting the big bad boogeyman, and here it is, this little short man, frail.
Yeah.
But not somebody I was feeling sorry for, but
No.
he did not age well.
I just want to kick him in his
Karma's a
face.
bitch, you motherfucker.
Yeah, seriously. Sorry. We get a little crazy towards the end of these ones. I just want to kick him in the face. Like, fucking Jesus.
Right. So, he was actually sentenced on my husband's birthday, November 22nd.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
my dad's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Well, of course, yeah.
And so they take it back to the 1970 statutes of, everything.
Right.
And so he was sentenced 10 to life.
Right.
But they gave him 20 years. So he won't be eligible for parole for 20 years.
Okay.
So So, and then of course, if he's still alive at that time, I will go and before the parole board. And anybody else that wants to go.
Yeah, we are in your corner. We are in your corner. That day,
Okay.
I have to say, that day is not coming. As you just said, he did not age well. He is not going to get better. He is not going to do better. He is dying in prison where he belongs. And, what is it? He's, 82?
Right.
82-ish right now. So, I mean, it was, I think you had said 36. So 2036 was going to be his parole date. So no, we're not making it. We're not making it there. No one needs to think about that.
Right.
But
Nobody needs to clear their calendar.
we 100% will be following along and paying attention and, staying in contact with you and keeping up with everything that has to do with this case. But, if it ever does come when he's 100 billion fucking years old, we'll be in your corner. And
for sure.
He's not going anywhere. But
yeah, I think I figured he'd be 90, 93, 96. He would be in his 90s. Yeah.
I don't know how he lived with himself this long. The fact that he's made it just makes absolutely no sense to me.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you will be absolutely ready for your chance to tell him to go F himself again. That's how that'll
Right.
go when the time comes, if it comes. I did tell Heather, I am an avid Morbid listener. And of course, if they ever do, when they do, if you do, whoever does, I will proudly be sporting my Die Mad Tom t-shirt, 100%.
Right.
Oh, actually, real quick, can you tell Heather about the pink handcuffs? Because I feel like that was a thing.
Oh, so,
that I told her.
So when Egley was arrested, he had David had a set of pink handcuffs made, and he was arrested in a set of pink handcuffs.
Yes.
David has those, And then when he was actually taken to prison,
Yeah. What does that say at the bottom?
it says "Sit kas habus." It means "let there be peace" in Latin.
Yes.
So these are the ones he actually wore to the Utah State Prison.
Oh my
And then it's got November 29th, 2016. That's the day that he arrived as an inmate at the prison.
Wow.
And those were a gift from Brewer. So,
nice.
yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad you have those. I'm glad that he was taken in pink handcuffs, because that's just like another like shut
That
it,
is so
boy.
great.
You little
Right?
boy. So I have a couple more questions if you have a little bit more
you're
time. Fine. He's there, obviously, stay there forever. We're in your corner forever, all of it. I just want to know, like, how you're doing right now. It's years later, but when we lose people, obviously, that never goes away. So how are you now, and, like, what have you been up to recently?
So, I'm doing good. Being able to talk about my mom, the cemetery is like 30 minutes away, and I go decorate her grave. It's a very peaceful place. My grandparents are there. My mom is there. Life is good today. There's a sense of peace that it's just a wonderful feeling. And it doesn't mean that I've, forgiven him for any means, it just means that the hate, that ugly resentment hate, that I carried around for so many years, it's not eating me up.
Right. Good.
So, my husband and I, we have a great life together, and I share my story as often as I can. And, my biggest thing is, we did it without DNA. Right. We had a plan. We stuck to the plan, and we did it. And anybody that's, struggling with cold cases, I always say, as long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Yes.
And, I believed with my whole heart that we were going to solve it. I had to believe that we were going to solve my mom's case.
Right.
And, never, ever give up, because, I hit so many brick walls through this whole process that it would have been, easy to give up, but you can't, I have, I have friends that I talk to on Facebook, and it's just sad. 1% of cold cases get solved.
Oh my gosh.
That's unacceptable.
Right.
That's crazy.
So,
but if, like you said, if people don't speak up, if people do not do their part, if they know something, if they saw something, whether it's they know for a fact, or, oh, well, this was odd, or this was weird, or someone said this, you have to say anything and everything. So,
right. And, and just to piggyback on that. So for instance, Linda, who, lived with my grandparents for a while.
Yes.
Linda, messaged me one day, and she says, Heidi, I have something, I don't know, maybe I should talk to Brewer about it. I don't know. Do you have his number? And I wasn't quite sure what she was talking about. And I said, yeah, here, give him a call. And Linda called and told him, hey, did you know Loretta wrote T and O in her own blood as she was dying?
God. Right.
And David said, this sounds a little too Hollywood-ish to me, but she wrote it out. She drew it out on a piece of paper for him, and lo and behold, it just happened to be in the exact same spot that we have a photograph of the crime scene that my grandparents had taken with the T and the O that was written in blood.
Yeah.
So
insane.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you just brought that up too, because I was trying to let you just go. You were flowing so perfectly with everything as you were saying it, that after we talked about Lisa, I didn't say that. But yeah, that is crazy. I remember I pulled up that photo because it was in a video, so I had to stop the
Right.
video and take a picture of it, and I showed my boyfriend, and I was like, look at this. Like, how people see this. When you are looking for a certain something, you look at every single thing, you know, and maybe in the moment you're not like, is this a fact, or is this real? Because sometimes you can believe like, oh, this is something, right? When you're investigating something. That was the most obvious, like, I am doing this to help you guys figure this out. And I mean, that on top of the fact that you, as a 4-year-old, said it was Tom. Someone called in and said it was Tom. Other people said it was Tom. He was arrested in the area the same night. It was Tom. There were so many things that he did not need to be out of jail for 46 years, living his life, having other kids, doing his own things, you know, and the fact that you eventually, obviously, I mean, not even eventually, the entire time you were doing things. So I didn't mean that. But to finally get him where he belongs, I am just so happy for you in that moment, because you've already been through enough, and you know now that at least that part of justice was served. So that's where he needs to be. Oh man, sorry. I feel like I was preaching just now. I was like, I got into it. I was wondering.
Yes, you go, girl.
I was wondering, you know, with everything that you've been through the years, you know, as you said, August is Cold Case Awareness Month, and I was just wondering if you're a part of any organizations or anything that you advocate for that you would either want the listeners to know about, like anything that you could give insight or knowledge about cold case wise, or like even how to go about solving a case, since you did that as well.
Well, you know, there's a cold case coalition here in Utah. Every state, I hope, has a cold case coalition. You know, I'm just a firm believer of, if you know something, say something. And you know, I became friends with many, I mean, it's heartbreaking, many other people that have a case that hasn't been solved. And you know, I've offered, here's what we've done. This is how we did it, and if I can help, let me know. As far as an organization, you know, I'm just very familiar with the Cold Case Coalition here in Utah. You know, they didn't work on my mom's case. It was all handled here by, you know, Carbon County Sheriff's Office, which was fantastic.
Can you see, Heather, I don't know if you hear like a difference in the noise?
I thought it was
Heidi,
just
I don't know
me
if you
though.
touched something like on your
Your
microphone,
voice like kind of changed a little, but I thought it was
at
just
the
me.
very end of that. I heard you different, so I don't know what that was.
Oh, I don't either. I haven't moved.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know.
It might just be the connection or something.
I'm like,
like
maybe
that.
your phone's overheating because we've kept you past hours.
I know.
I don't know if it's that. I just wanted to see, you know, is there anything else that you'd like to say or add about your mom, her story, your story, or anything before we go?
You know, I think the best thing that I can say is, if, you know, you have a cold case, you know, never give up. As long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Yes.
I know my mom would have went to great lengths if anything happened to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I loved her more than anything in the whole wide world. At 4 years old, she was my whole world.
Right.
And, you know, it was just, I had to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but it was worth it, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
It took you some time, but it's like you know, you had her, she had you. I mean, everything she was doing, from what you said in the beginning of her going to school and her, you know, spending that time with you, everything was for you, for the, you know, just the two of you guys to do better, to be better, and to have that, and you had to make it a point to figure it out, and it took way too long. I am so sorry that you had to deal with that for so long, because I mean, I know, like we said earlier, obviously, even with the conviction, even with him in jail, you still hurt, right? But it's like knowing that he is there where he belongs. If you could have had that weight lifted long ago, what difference things could have, made, right? So I wish that would have happened, but it did happen a little later than you wanted, and we are so happy that he's there. And like we said earlier, we are in your corner 100% of the way. We thank you so much for being here with us. It's unfortunate that this was, our topic today, but that story, her story, your mom's story, needs to be told, and everyone should hear about her. From how you've explained her and her pictures that you've posted and that I've seen, she seemed like a beautiful person inside and out. And as for you, you too are a beautiful person inside and out, and just a friggin' badass. And I am obsessed with you.
Badass.
I'm obsessed with you. If I ever need help with anything, I am contacting you.
I know. We know who to call.
Yes.
Before we go, just like Rachel said, I'm just so happy that the way that you put it was so beautiful, that you think about it every day, and it's not that you've forgiven him, but you do have peace. And for you to have that, it just makes me so happy. And like Rachel said, I so wish for you that had come way more than freaking 46 years later. But it makes me so happy that you have that peace. And if anything can be something that people going through your situation can see and to strive for, is, that's amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Before we go, I would like, so our podcast is a mom cast, and I feel like your quote that you came up through, through this time was amazing. And it's short, it's simple, it's sweet, but it's straight to the point. It is exactly what I feel like so many people need in this kind of situation, in any kind of situation, because it is just strictly, it's just powerful. It's meaningful. So if you could say that one more time for everyone to hear, I would appreciate that.
As long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Yes. Oh, my heart.
I know. I just got shivers.
And I want to say, hashtag die mad, Tom.
Exactly.
I'm getting that shirt. I hope I don't get in trouble.
We'll figure it out. We'll get the shirt. We'll get those shirts out there.
I don't know if I'm allowed to even say anything like that for other people's, their podcasts and stuff. I'm still learning here.
Support. It's all support.
But it is support. But it was so nice meeting you, and we really appreciate this. And we'll obviously be in contact with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being with us. We really. Oh, Rachel, you're frozen. Is she frozen for you? Is that just me?
Oh, she's frozen.
Okay. She got too excited. She blew out her Wi-Fi.
Oh, shoot.
No, it's fine. We were just so amazed at how graceful you were about wanting to share your story, and we're just so excited about it. So we will keep in touch with you. We'll let you know when things drop, and thank you again so much for sharing with us and letting we're small, but we're working on it, and the more people who know stories like this, the better. So
and you got to start somewhere, so good job.
Exactly. Yes, thank you. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I'll go stalk you on Instagram now.
Yes, find me on Instagram.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, take care.
Okay, thank you. You too.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.